So I ended up getting 8th in the heat race, and I remember being on the start line. I had to ask the 2 mechanics next to me to put my button in, like my holster button, and they're like, "Where's your mechanic?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm just here by myself chilling." So you can work as hard as you want, but I'm never going to be as good as Jet Lawrence. That is a freak.
I met a gypsy.
We had like this off season. It was a little bit of an interesting off season because
tell us the story.
So I had like saved up my money and I bought the bikes or whatever, and it was just like a normal day back. It was in November, middle of November, and I got up at 6 like normal, hopped on the cycle, and then it was probably about 10 to 7, and I was in my little bunk room just on my foam roller, just stretching for the day, and Lucy was in the kitchen making me breakfast, and we heard like a little bit of commotion outside, like, and I was going, what the f*** is that? And I popped my head out, and we just see like there was a full-on like SWAT team of police on the property, and we were kind of like, oh, this is finally sort of happening. And so I'll try and say as much as I can. I don't want to blow anyone out or anything like that, but where I was living, trying to do it as cheap as I can, I live in basically like a little shack on a property, and on that property there was like illegal sort of activity on the property that was nothing to do with me, but there was there, and sort of like I knew it was there, but it was nothing to do with us. Like we honestly had nothing to do with it. But I guess when you're on that property and a raid happens, you get involved with it. So I'm just on the fucking foam roller, and they have the rams to ram the doors open, and that like a big Mexican dude, like probably like 300 pounds or more, he came and held me at gunpoint and threw me on the ground. And then another officer came in the other door, and my girlfriend was like, I don't know what to do, because he had the gun pointed at her. And then he's like, just stand up against the wall and put your hands behind your head. Hands behind you. So we both got like put in handcuffs, taken outside. And as I'm being taken outside, we get put and just sat on a little sleeper outside. And I look up and there's a chopper really low. And I'm just like, is that with you guys? And the officer was like, yep. I'm like, holy fuck. I look around and there's probably about 20 to 30 police cars. And we're sitting down on the sleeper outside, and I look over to my girlfriend. I'm like, this is interesting, isn't it? Like, you wouldn't think, like, going back to talking about if your chick's ride or die for you or not. She's just sitting there in handcuffs, and I'm like, well, fuck, this is not ideal for both of us, is it? So they came on the property and they like searched my house, because they obviously had to search all the buildings on the property, and which was good, because I was kind of like, go ahead, search, because it'll prove that I know nothing about anything and don't have anything to do with this. So as soon as I got taken outside in the handcuffs, I told the officer, which I didn't know I had told when I had to go through all this again, but I said to the officer, I've got $7,100 in my underwear drawer, because just by chance I had sold a bike the night before. Like, I'd been trying to sell one of my gases for months, and I finally just sold it. And I had $7,100 in my underwear drawer. And when the search happens, they legit just upend your whole fucking life. Like, everything I owned was on the floor. Like, they were just walking over it, everything like that. And so that happened about 10 to 7 in the morning when we first got detained, and they took the handcuffs off us about 40 minutes in, and we just sat there with one of the officers while the search happened. And when we finally got told, you just have to get off the property or we have to take you to jail, my girlfriend got escorted in by one of the officers to get her handbag so that she could go to work, and I got escorted in to get some clothes to go to the gym. And when I seen that, like, went in, I seen that my money was gone. And I said to the officer, they've taken my money. How do I go about getting it back? And he said, you're going to have to go to court. And obviously I was in no position to argue at that point. So I just was like, yep, we got off the property, and the next day I rode at Parlour, and after riding at Parlour, I went to the sheriff's department. I had the warrant that they had left. I had the bill of sale for the bike, and I could prove everything was legit. And I went to reception and then sat down, and the main dude from the raid came out, and he's like, "What's up?" And I'm kind of like, "Well, I've got to go about the process of trying to get my money back." And he goes, "We didn't take anything." And I'm like, "Well," so he goes, "Go back to the property now. Search the house. When you find the money, here's my number. Text me." And going back through all this, the police were actually really good to me. The main people in charge were awesome. I've got no, I'm not saying anything about police officers or anything like that. It was actually really good. But I went back, cleaned my whole house, because at that time, I'd been back that night before, but the power had been switched off because it was a crime scene, I guess. So I went back, searched the whole house. There's no money. So I text him. He texts me. He goes, "Can I call you?" And I'm like, and before I'd even answered, he called me, and he goes, "Can you be on the property in 30 minutes?" I'm like, "Yep." So a dude above him and another guy came out and searched my shack again. And they were like, "Well, fuck, there's no money here now. We've got to do something about this." And it turns out one of the sheriffs stole $7,000 out of my underwear drawer. And that was the money at the time that I had to keep going through the off season. So that made the off season super hard this year. And because there was no power, we were just lucky that we got to stay at my girlfriend's grandma's apartment down in Oceanside now. So we've just been doing that, but I can't work on any of my bikes at her place. So I've still been working on my bikes at the property, but there's still no power on at the moment. So during the off season, when it was in the winter, it starts to get dark at 4:30. So I'm trying to do my fucking bike work and graphics and all that, and all I had at the property was a generator. So I'm sitting there with my heat gun doing the graphics, and it starts raining on off. And one of the days I was like, "Fuck this! I'm sick of wasting all this gas money driving down to Oceanside at the end of the day. I'm just gonna stay at the property with no power." And I'd been to the gym and all that, and I was like, "I have to shower." And I forgot to shower at the gym, and I just stood in the shower, and I put a bottle of water over the soap bar, and I soaked myself up, and then I got a couple of, and it's fucking winter, so I'm freezing cold, and I literally said to myself, I'm like, if this is what I got to do to race Supercross, this is what I'm fucking doing. And so it took the week before the season, I think it was, the county actually ended up paying me out. So
really,
yeah, so I got my money back, but I had to go do a whole 2-hour interrogation with a detective who was put on the case of my money. And basically he was really good. He'd been on the force for 27 years or something like that. And he said to me when he called me after a while, he's like, "I'm kind of pissed off about this whole thing because I don't have too many unsolved cases." And he went through every officer on the raid and interviewed them and said, asked them 3 questions. He told me, he said, asked them, "Did you see the money?" He asked, he goes, "Did you see the money?" There was one other question or whatever, and then if someone was to take the money, who would have taken the money? And every officer basically said this one officer, and since that raid, that officer had been on a medical leave, and he was trying to get a medical retirement. So basically he just explained to me, he goes, he's a dodgy cop, and we sometimes you get dodgy cops and you can't do anything about that. And he goes, but we don't have any evidence to show that he actually had taken the money. But I had an Australian $20 note. I had kept a $50 American note that I thought was cool because it was old. It was 1973. So I could, I knew exactly what I had there, and I had the bill of sale and everything to be able to prove it. I had the messages printed off when I went from the sale.
Oh, and because it was the night before, you can't get rid of $7,000 in that short of a period of time. Yeah.
So
fuck, you got lucky, bro.
Oh, dude, even just when we were sitting in the handcuffs, I couldn't give a fuck about the money at that point because it was I didn't know the money was taken at that point, but I was worried for my girlfriend who if she got a record, she couldn't come to
Ever
Australia.
come to Australia, yeah. You would have got
if
sent
I got
home.
a record, and I just said to the officers, is this going to affect my visa? And he's like, who gives a fuck, man? Biden lets anyone in. And I'm like, dude, I need to be able to get in and out of America. I'm not trying to, like, and it was pretty stressful, the whole thing. But it all worked itself out in the end, and we still don't have power there at the property, but it should be getting sorted soon. And because like it's a tough position, because to rent anywhere or that is so expensive. Where I was there, I was paying quite little rent, and that's how I was able to sort of be here and stay. And like if I was to have a house, like some houses are like $2,000 or $2,500 to be here, or have a room, but you've got so much shit with your bike stuff, to have just a room somewhere is too hard. So we've been very lucky that we've had my girlfriend's grandma's just to stay there, and I've been paying rent there. But it's made the whole season so fucked, and I'm just kind of like trying to get through the season and then rebuild and get back to living normal and stuff like that, because it honestly has been kind of fucked this year. Like even just going to the car wash to spend to wash the bike after each day, and that I've spent a fortune with that stuff. But it's just a funny story. Like I had to call my dad back home because we got released at about, they said like you can leave at 11 a.m. So it was about, I think it was about 5 a.m. back home, and I called Dad. I'm like, wake the fuck up. And he was kind of, what was that? And I'm like, wake up. We were just in a freaking drug raid. And it's stuff like people can be angry and say, well, if you knew what was going on that property, then you shouldn't have been there. But when you can't pay rent to be somewhere and don't have the money to do that, it's like that's how I was being able to afford to be here and race and all that. I was only paying a small amount of rent, and it was fine for me. Like my shack is perfect, but you can't have, if you run the microwave, you can't have any other appliances. So it was kind of all like that, but it was perfect just for me and my girlfriend to live together. I had all my bike stuff and that, but we weren't really expecting to be raided and be involved with something like that. But I will tell you, sitting there and knowing that I wasn't involved in any way was really nice, because it was like, go ahead, fucking search, go ahead. And the cops, all the main like cops and sheriffs that I had to deal with were really cool to me. Like a lot of them, when I seen, like they had like dirt bike shirts on when I had met them in private and stuff like that. So they were all really cool. But it was just an unfortunate situation to be in.
We're excited to announce the launch of our new membership site, gypsytales.com, packed with exclusive content and perks that you won't find anywhere else. This is your chance to become a part of the Gypsy Gang. And as a special bonus, if you sign up to an annual membership, you'll be entered into the draw to win our custom-built TC125. Gypsy Gang.